Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today to our informational session about our Arbor Week grants for 2023. This is a program interview and a lot of information coming at you fast. It's going to be recorded and shared later on our YouTube channel, so you will have a chance to view it again. So my name is Victoria Vasquez. I am the Grants and Public Policy Manager for California Relief, and I'm joined today by Megan Duquette, and she is our Education and Communications Program Manager. We're both going to be sharing information with you. I'm going to start by letting you know that where I'm coming from, a land acknowledgement. I'm here in Sacramento, California, which was and is the land of the Nisenan people. So I wanted to recognize that and let you know that at the end of today's session, we're going to have some questions and answers time. Please add your questions to the chat as we go along, or you can ask them in person by raising your hand or simply unmuting yourself after we share this information with you. If you're just coming in now, please add your organization's name to your name if possible, so I can see where you're coming from. Today, we're going to have a brief session, maybe 30 minutes before Q&A, probably a little bit less. I'm going to talk to you about California Relief, who we are and what we do, just in case you're unfamiliar with our organization. We're going to talk about California Arbor Week itself, the parameters of the grant, including the timeline, some project management strategies to help you be successful, grant resources that we have for you, and the application process. So we'll talk about all of that and have some questions and answers. And I'll get started with who California Relief is. So California Relief is a host of a network of environmental nonprofits that focus on tree planting across the entire state of California, sort of an umbrella organization for other nonprofits, if you will. And in 1991, we became the volunteer coordinator for the state of California. And in this role, we are able to receive federal funding for that. What we do is peer-to-peer education. We do advocacy. So you have a voice and we have a voice here in the legislature to advocate for urban forests, urban greening, public health across the state of California. And we have a network. So the network is privy to our grants as well as non-network members. Our grants come from several different sources. We have larger grants and smaller grants, such as this one, who's brought to us by our sponsor today, which is Edison International. So this grant is sponsored by Edison. If you're in our network or not, you're eligible to apply. And I'll have Megan talk a little bit more about our network in that detail.
Hey, thanks, Victoria, and welcome, everybody. I'm Megan Duquette. I'm our Education and Communications Program Manager, and it's good to see you all today. Our network, as Victoria mentioned, we've been kind of acting as an umbrella organization for the past 33 years. We are a mighty network of over 75 community-based groups and nonprofits, as far north as Eureka and as far south as San Diego. And our network it varies like California's geography. We have small, very small volunteer-based organizations, and then we have larger, more established nonprofits with paid staff. And our groups are diverse in the types of work that they do. We have people who organizations that are focused on street tree planting, other organizations that focus on habitat restoration, environmental justice, education, you name it. There are a lot of variety amongst our group. And I highly encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to check out our website. We have all of our network members listed. Victoria mentioned that, as a convener of this awesome network, we really value peer-to-peer learning, and we host a lot of educational webinars, learning over lunch sessions, as well as an annual network retreat where you can network with other like-minded organizations. And so, if this interests you at all, definitely check out our website, learn how you might come and join our network, or just learn more about organizations all over the state that you may want to partner with in the future. So that's just a little bit about our network. And I'll turn it back over to Victoria. Thank you. Oh, I'm taking this slide too, huh? I forgot, I apologize. So what is California Arbor Week? Well, most of Americans, we celebrate Arbor Day in the end of April, but here in California, we celebrated a little early on March 7th, actually, because of a famed horticulturalist named Luther Burbank. He was born in 1849 and spent much of the 1800s and early 1900s developing various types of new strains of plants and fruit trees. And so we celebrate in honor of his birthday and his contribution to plants and trees here in California. And since 2011, we have been celebrating Arbor Week. There was a resolution that passed that allowed us to extend the celebration. And here at California Relief, we have annual traditions to help celebrate. And one of them is this grant program, the California Arbor Week grant that Victoria mentioned is sponsored by Edison International this year and is meant to be an incubator grant. And then we also have some other great traditions. And one of them is to do a little bit of outreach to our young folks. We have an Arbor Week poster contest that children can get involved with. And so I will put that link in the chat here. I highly encourage you as lovers of trees, I think that would be all of us here today, to share this contest with the young people in their life. It's meant for ages 5 to 12, and it's to get kids to think about how trees benefit not only our environment, but for our mental and physical health. And so this year's theme is Trees Plant a Cooler Future. And so we've got our entry form as well as our past winners, like the young lady in the picture below here. Also on our California Arbor Week website, if you look around, we have educational resources for teachers and parents and homeschool groups, as well as a media kit to help you if you're interested in writing an op-ed or writing in to your local newspaper in celebration of Arbor Week. So that's just a little bit about it. And I'll turn it back over to Victoria.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan. So let's talk about this Arbor Week grant for 2023. This is from Edison International. Here's the timeline. Your applications can be accepted now. The grant period to apply is open currently, and they're due by January 9th. The projects must be completed, meaning all of your invoicing done and trees planted by May 31st of 2023. And then a couple of weeks after that, your final report would be due. And I see some people on this call who are veteran CAL FIRE grant recipients, but I wanted to let you know this is unrestricted funding. This is a very light final report. This is more of a narrative. We want to understand how did you engage with your community. We want to hear quotes from your volunteers. We want to see pictures, and we want to understand the story. And we will not be collecting receipts. If you are to be awarded this grant, upon signing a contract, you would receive 50% of the funding upfront in advance to get your project started. And then upon completion, you do not have to wait until June 15th. If you're done right after Arbor Week or even the week before, you may submit your final report to us, and upon its acceptance, you will receive the remaining 50% of the funds. Now, this is a small grant. This is an incubator grant, right? If you've never planted trees before, that's okay. We're looking for you. We have a lot of resource to share with you. If you've been considering tree planting and urban forestry, this is a really good way to get started with a small, unrestricted grant. Obviously, the goal is community engagement and to get trees in the ground. So the more trees in the ground, the more competitive your grant. Something that's very important to note, which is why we have this map here, is you must work or plant the trees within the territory of Edison International. This can be complicated and confusing if you're in Southern California. So making sure that the service area where you are planting trees is an Edison service area is really important. Please check your bill. please check their website and find out, is the place where you would like to plant trees serviced by Edison? That is a requirement of this grant. We have a lot of resources to help you get started if you're new, even if you have been planting trees for a long time. Megan has put together a wonderful packet of guidelines to help you in every stage of your tree planting event. We're going to talk a little bit about that now, but the goal really is to bring awareness to Arbor Week, to engage and activate your community to understand the benefits of trees and to help them create sustainable tree projects. Right. And if you don't know yet where you might want to plant or what your community needs are, take a good look around your neighborhood that you want to plant in. What are the needs of that community when we talk about trees? Trees offer a lot of benefits, but what are the issues that your community has that need solving? A good way to start, if you're just getting started, is to look at this list of places I've collected here. Playgrounds, senior centers, community centers, bike lanes, right? Look around and see where is the greatest need for tree canopy. And then when you're engaging your community members about this project, asking what they need or what they would like, consider one of these benefits of trees, whether it's healthy food access, extreme heat, poor air quality, or lack of community cohesion. So if your community's barriers to public health are extreme heat, if you have a lot of cement and asphalt, you want to consider planting a larger species of tree to cover that. Because during the day, as that asphalt and cement is sucking up all of that heat, during the night, it's emitting it back out. So our neighborhoods with fewer trees are actually hotter at night, and that can cause them to use more electricity to run that air conditioner. And these are things we want to avoid, and we can mitigate through large species tree planting. If you need equitable, healthy food access in your neighborhood, you might want to consider planting fruit and nut trees. And if you do, you want to consider planting a fruit tree that can be harvested easily by community members, maybe like a dwarf fruit tree, or making sure it has enough space between the tree and a fence or another tree next to it so that community members can easily get around the tree to collect the fruit without dangerously tall ladders or the need of something else. So really considering the needs of your community members and being very intentional in your tree projects is something that we're looking for. Air quality improvement, different species of trees sequester different amounts of carbon. If you're planting along a busy street or a bike lane or along a freeway interchange, you want to consider what species are you planting that's going to help the air quality, which can result in lower rates of asthma and other pollutants and toxins in the air being reduced. We have a lot of resources I mentioned earlier to help you choose those trees. So as you're planning your projects, they're all eligible when it comes to trees. And that's why I say community cohesion is a wonderful tree benefit. Planting an honorary tree, a memorial tree, bringing people together at any one of these places here listed at the top or other places that your community convenes is a great way to celebrate trees by celebrating people with trees. You can partner with a local organization who's already working on one of these needs. Healthy food access, cleaner air. Find these nonprofits in your community once you find your need and team up with them, partner up with them, bring this funding together so that you can plan a larger, more sustainable event. For example, for community cohesion, you could find a nonprofit who would put a bench next to a memorial tree or a plaque. Right? So there's different ways to come together and be creative, share education about trees. If you're planting fruit trees at school, bringing the curriculum along to the students, right? Making sure that your community is engaged, understanding the benefit because they are receiving the benefit when they are receiving those trees. So you want to make sure that once you identify your need, you are authentically engaging the community because they're the ones who are going to see these trees every day. Right? We want them to feel successful in your project, in your funding here from Edison International. So as I mentioned before, Megan's going to be giving you some guidelines once you're an awardee to give you very good tips about how to take a great picture, how to tag people on social media, who to tag on social media, to make sure that you're engaging your sponsor, who's Edison. They would like to be invited to your event. They want to be tagged in your photos. They want to be advertised in your project as the support of your community greening. So making sure that you have them invited, maybe they could say a few words, and making sure that you've invited the press and the media and however that neighborhood gets their news, whether it's a local newspaper, school bulletin, radio station, newspaper, however, TV media, however that neighborhood gets their information, make sure that they are celebrated and noted in that media to encourage others to enact their own sustainable climate adaptation strategies, right? Which is tree planting. Your final report, as I said before, is a narrative heavy report. It's just your story of what happened. So make sure during your event that you're capturing these small stories and these photos, quotes from your volunteers, and just being prepared to share what you were able to accomplish. Engaging your community from the beginning is also a really good way to ensure some accountability and responsibility of a neighborhood for those trees in the future. Should they be vandalized or harmed in a storm, these are the people who are going to come back to you and say, hey, we need to replant that tree, or hey, it's time to take the stakes off of this tree. So when they are engaged from the very beginning, especially and they do have a lifespan. We're not just planting baby trees. We're ensuring that these trees come to their full life cycle, their full lifespan, depending on their species, 100 years or 300 years or 500 years. Are you planting an oak? What are you planting, right? Making sure that you know in the very beginning who is watering that tree, who's going to maintain that tree, who owns that tree technically, right? Which ground is it on? So who's going to help it out and who's responsible for reaching out to replace it if need be. Tree planting is a fun thing. And sometimes you can encounter some really hard ground. Sometimes you can have a really hot day that you're trying to plant on. So keep it fun. Bring people together with food. As I mentioned before, this is unrestricted funding. These are not state dollars that will not provide lunch. These are not state dollars that would provide a youth stipend, right? If you're a 501c3 and you're a nonprofit, you are able to use this funding to break up some concrete to plant your trees, to buy lunch for everyone, to pay a DJ to come to your party, to use funds to permit to shut down the street if you're planting street trees and keep your volunteers safe, right? So really think big when you're thinking about what are your participants feeling on this day that they're planting your trees? Are they having a good time? Are they going to want to do it again? Are you going to want to do this again next year? Celebrating trees in California Arbor Week, it really is a holiday, right? And this is a holiday that you can come back to these trees every year and take your picture again and show the growth that you've been able to develop for your community. So there are some resources here I'm going to have Megan share with you in more detail.
Awesome. Thank you, Victoria. So I just put in the chat a link to our grantee resources page. And this is going to be really helpful for those who are interested in finding out about eligibility as well as how to get to our application materials. And then those folks who are awarded, as Victoria mentioned, we put together a grant program guide. So there are helpful resources there to think about inviting your elected officials, helping get the message out to your local media, how to take a really great picture, resources to help you develop your own graphics for social media or flyers for your event. So that's going to be really helpful to you there. On this page, there's also really helpful information for you as you think about your application. There's a tree planting event toolkit link that you can read more about. What kind of things should you be thinking of as you're planning this event? What type of tree would be the most suitable for that space? So there's a link to Select Tree, which is a great resource for you. And then there's also planting and care guides, which are helpful. So there are videos of how to plant a tree, downloadable cue cards and informational flyers about that. especially if you're a new group or you're going to be working with volunteers that haven't done this before. All of those resources are here on the grantee resources page, and there's even more resources on our main resources page. So take a look. And then last but not least, we have our full eligibility guidelines page. I just put that link into the chat. This is where you're going to find the map for Edison International, the Southern California Edison map. So you know what area is suitable, and as Victoria mentioned before, that's really important to check out before you apply. Is my project going to take place in an Edison service area? That's really critical. And one of the things that I think is really critical is understanding what your final report's going to look like. So you can read the final report questions, what you will be asked on your final report. So take a look at that. And if you have any questions or after looking at everything, you can always reach out to us. But everything that you should need should be on this page. And I'll turn it back over to Victoria.
Absolutely. We have a lot of resources there, as Megan's highlighting. So even if you decide not to plant this time around, or that you're not in an Edison area, that resource is always there for you on our California Relief website. So here we are at the end. I know we have some questions in the chat that Megan's going to read out, and I'm going to answer the ones in the chat first. And then if you have additional questions, we can get to those as well. So what do we got, Megan?
Okay, so far we only have one question in the chat, and the question is Edison territory only in Southern California? I'm in Northern California in Petaluma. Is there a grant opportunity for me?
Yes, great question. We do have currently a Northern California opportunity, and I can email that to you after this grant recording. This one is simply for Edison, but we do have a concurrent grant opportunity, as well as CAL FIRE grants are being released in January, and then there'll be more opportunities to apply. So did that question come from Relief Petaluma?
Yes, and so one of the things that I will mention is earlier today we held a Growing Green Communities grant informational webinar that's sponsored by Pacific Gas and Electric, and we'll have that webinar detail on our website as well, if that interests you. Here's another question. Are municipalities, cities eligible to apply for our California Arbor Week grant?
Great question. This really is an incubator grant intended for smaller nonprofits, community-based organizations, which typically are a 501c3. If your organization is smaller than a 501c3 or you do not have that classification, you may partner with a fiscal sponsor or a fiscal agent in order to accomplish your project. A municipality could be a fiscal agent, however, it would not be as financially viable as a fiscal sponsor because of the tax liability that would come along with the grant funding. So I would recommend teaming up with a nonprofit to be your applicant if you have a project in mind as a municipality or city.
Great. We have another question, and this one is, I'm in Kern County. Will I be eligible?
That's a great question. I honestly don't know where Kern County is. So what you want to do is check the link on the map. You can check your utility bill and see if you are an Edison customer. And if you aren't, we do have another opportunity in Northern California.
And as best I can tell, it looks as though Edison covers a portion of Kern County. You just have to check your city location to what Edison has listed as their service area, and the map is on our website. And so do take a look.
Yes,
Let's see.
Just because of where your office is, where you're registered as a nonprofit, doesn't mean that's where you're going to be planting trees, right? So check the address of the location that you'd like to plant in. That is what qualifies it.
Okay, I do not see any additional questions. Wait a second, one more thing. It says, here's a question. It says, just want to make sure the event should be completed during Arbor Week. Is that correct? Do I have to complete my project during California Arbor Week?
You do not. You can complete it any time between being awarded the grant, which would be mid-January, through May 31st. So if you had an awareness campaign during California Arbor Week and engaged your neighborhood during that time to plan your tree planting after May 31st, or even a little bit before, it might be a little too hot for a large planting event for trees to be successful. So no, you can complete work up until the last day of the grant, which would be May 31st.
That concludes our questions in the chat. So if you'd like, Victoria, you can open it up to the folks if they want to either raise their hand or unmute themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Thank you. I put my email up there so you could email me about the Northern California.
Wonderful, I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if there's something you'd like to revisit about this webinar, we're going to be posting it on our California Relief YouTube channel briefly here, so you'll be able to watch it again or share it with a nonprofit that you're considering partnering with. And I do recommend partnership. I do recommend reaching out to other nonprofits and combining your grant or using your grant as match funding for another grant, just in case your project is a little larger than a $3,000 to $5,000 project. Sharing resources with your partners and finding other people who can help you to gather a larger number of volunteers, or maybe they speak a language that you're looking to engage in a particular neighborhood, right? There's a lot of different reasons to find local partnership, and we encourage you to do so. Yes, Robert? You're on mute, my friend.
There we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm with a local nonprofit called Oswald Land Trust in Palm Springs, California. And we are a relatively new organization that buys land down here to save it from development. And we've recently purchased a golf course that's right in the middle of town. And we're converting it to an urban desert preserve. So we have great needs for tree planting because we're trying for habitat restoration, and we have a wash that goes all the way through the golf course. So there's a lot of opportunity here. So my question is, I noticed that you alerted us earlier to a larger grant operation that Relief runs than this small grant. We would probably be in the interest for that. Can you direct me to actual granting opportunities as they come up?
Absolutely. That is definitely a benefit of membership in the Relief Network, is that we are, keeping you in the know and up to date with current grant opportunities. The ones I mentioned earlier are coming down from CAL FIRE. They're expected to be released in January with a February or later deadline. So we recently released some information on our website, I believe, and through our social media channels. Megan, who's our communications manager, is better at explaining that. But basically telling you to be ready, how to be ready for these grant opportunities as they arise. So I would recommend joining our network. I would recommend going to our website and looking at the network members. Their web pages are linked there as well, and following us on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Megan, would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, you're absolutely right. We reach out and let you know about all these grant funding opportunities as a network member. We also encourage you to join our e-newsletter. I just put that in the chat, so I would sign up for that, and you can choose how you'd like to receive information. So maybe it's just about Arbor Week, maybe it's just about grant application materials. You can sign up there. One of the great opportunities, I think, of being a network member is that you can do that peer-to-peer learning network and find out what other folks are doing, how they're strategizing and partnering together, especially in applying for some of these competitive larger grants. So do take a look at our e-newsletter. I think that's probably one of the best ways to stay informed. You get the the news in your email box, as well as following us on social. And you can find all of that by going to californiarelief.org. Scroll down to the bottom, you can find all of our network channels. So if you're on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, we will be posting there too.
Okay, just one follow-up question then. To actually become a network member, should I just go to calrelief.org and it will point me to how to sign up?
Yeah, what I will do for you is send you a direct link. It's basically, you go to californiarelief.org and hover over Relief Network, and then you'll see there is information about the network and then an application. So I'll put in the chat the direct link so you can take a look.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm not seeing any hands raised. Does anyone else have a question? And remember, we will be recording this and we'll have space after the recording for individual questions as well. Okay, wonderful. Well, we have a lot of information on our website for you. We have this wonderful resource of this video that will be posted on our YouTube channel, and we look forward to your applications.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to